Howdy, howdy. My name is John, and this video is my top reads of 2022. Now, I actually gave 15 books a 5-star rating this year, but 6 of those books were rereads. And like most people, I don't include rereads on a list like this. Now, 3 of those were books from the Narnia series. I gave 3 of the books 5 stars. I gave the other 4 books 4 stars. The other 3 books that I gave 5 stars to were part of a series, and a book from that series will show up later in the list. Before I get to my top 10, I do want to mention some honorable mentions of books that I gave 4 stars to, but I think that are noteworthy. The first one is my grandmother. My grandmother asked me to tell you that she's sorry by Fredrik Backman. This is my favorite of the Fredrik Backman novels that I have read thus far. Again, it got 4 stars because it's not really my taste of books, but it is a very good book and something worth reading. The next book I want to mention is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I'm about the same age as the creator of the Oasis, and so I found the 80 references to be really fun. The story itself, it's good. It's just I'm not much of a YA reader anymore, and that book is targeted to that audience. So, I found the references fun. The story is just okay. The next book I want to mention is The Red House Mystery by A. Milne. That's the author of the Winnie the Pooh books. I don't typically read mysteries, but I did enjoy reading this. Again, not my taste in books, so I didn't give it a 5-star, but still an enjoyable read. Next, I want to mention Once in a Great City. This is a book about Detroit in the 60s. I don't actually remember why I did not give this book a 5-star rating, but it is an enjoyable book if you're interested in the history of Detroit during its heyday. The next book I want to mention is The Words That Made Us. This is a book about the beginning of the United States, going from pre-revolutionary times, about the 20 years before that, up to about 30 or 40. Well, I think the book goes to 1840, so the years after the adoption of the Constitution. Parts of this book I really enjoyed, but parts of it I found to be kind of poorly argued. So this one did not quite get a 5-star rating from me. Next, I want to mention Tatham, Mound by Piers Anthony. I tried to avoid multiple books by the same author on this list, but this is a standalone. And I think a lot of times we kind of idealize pre-Columbian America. And this book does not do this. I think it gives a fairly realistic look at pre-Columbian America. The biggest reason I did not give this book 5 stars is the story really does bog down in several places in the story. Had that not been the case, I probably would have given this 5 stars. The last book I want to mention is Inventing Freedom, and this is by Daniel Hannan. The biggest reason this book did not get 5 stars is it's not documented. There's not a bibliography, and there are no notes. And in a nonfiction that is kind of argumentative like this and is trying to make a point, I really want to see documentation behind the ideas, behind the arguments. Otherwise, this is an excellent read, and I would suggest picking it up. Now, let's get to number 10. Number 10 is DoOon Mode by Piers Anthony. This book is the final book in his Mode series. I reread books 2 and 3 in this series this year and gave both of them 5 stars as well. This book only just barely got 5 stars, and it got 5 stars because it has a very strong ending. This ending, the main character, Cline, kind of has to deal with some of her issues, and I think that it's done in a very good manner. Number 9 on my list is Neil Patrick Harris' Choose Your Own Autobiography by Neil Patrick Harris. Harris styled this book as one of the old Choose Your Own Adventure books, and so if you choose to kind of read the book that way, you can make decisions and follow to the to different pages of the books, and some of the storylines kind of end up with Harris becoming a failure. Now, this book is also cleverly written that you can actually just read it as a normal book, and it goes kind of chronologically through his life, with the exception of the kind of false endings, which you just come across and get a good laugh out of them. There's actually a couple of pages that you're not going to find unless you read the book cover to cover. Again, this Choose Your Own Autobiography is a bit of a gimmick, and it's a fun gimmick. The autobiography itself is actually really well written. So if you're interested in Neil Patrick Harris or just in biographies of actors in general, this is a good one to pick up. Number 8 on my list is Engineering in Plain Sight by Grady Hillhouse. Grady Hillhouse has a YouTube channel where he talks about engineering on the channel, and the book is kind of a compilation of the videos. The book has a lot of great illustrations that point out the different parts of the infrastructure that he's talking about. He does a really good job explaining things. I am an engineer, and I really found this enjoyable. Now, the author does primarily talk about civil engineering with a little bit of electrical engineering thrown in. So there are engineering disciplines that really aren't mentioned, except maybe kind of in passing. So again, if you're interested in either civil engineering or electrical, then this is definitely a book that you should check out. Number 7 is Pebble in the Sky by Isaac Asimov. This is part of his Galactic Empire series. It's book 3 in the series, although it was written first. This is just an enjoyable story. It actually takes someone from about the time period that Asimov wrote the story and places them far into the future. And I just really enjoyed reading this story. Number 6 is The Long Secret by Louise Fitzhugh. Now, Harriet the Spy is the first book in this series, and it's a book that I've read many times. I reread it this year as well, and it's one of my all-time favorite books. The Long Secret follows Harriet and another character who appears in the first book but isn't one of Harriet's main friends. And the story in this is really quite good. It doesn't quite measure up to Harriet the Spy, but it's a really good story. Number 5 on my list is JFK, Growing Up in the American Century. This is the first book in a planned 2-book biography of John Kennedy. My buddy read this with Carrie from Very Literary Carrie. We had a really great time discussing the book. I think the book does a fairly good job, looking at Kennedy. It's neither too positive nor is it too negative about Kennedy. If anything, it's a little bit too positive, but I think he does a fairly good job balancing the book. Very well written, very well researched. I definitely encourage you, if you read this, to read the notes as well. Number 4 on my list is The Big Book of Peanuts, every comic from the 1950s. This is the first decade of the Peanuts comic by Charles Schulz. And as the book says, it prints every single one of them. The comics that were this old, I'd only seen a handful of. And I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. It was just an absolute pleasure to read. Really had a hard time picking between my top 3. And my number 3 actually almost became my number 1. The biggest reason I didn't is it's strictly speaking not a book. My number 3 is a pair of adult visual novels, or basically computer games, written by someone who goes by the name of Dr. Pinkcake. These are acting lessons and being a dick. Kind of bought being a dick as a lark. Again, these are adult visual novels, and you kind of have to be in the frame of mind to look at something that is adult themed. Again, things that are adult themed kind of don't have a reputation for the best storytelling. But the storytelling in these is absolutely amazing. It's just realistic characters making realistic decisions, even when those decisions are not the best decisions that those characters could be making. Of course, in this case, it's the player, that's actually making these decisions in a lot of cases, not in all cases. Especially in being a dick, there's a couple of moments where you get to a point in the story, and I did not see this revelation coming at all, but it makes perfect sense once you get there. And it's like, yeah, I can totally see that happening. And that's something that I really enjoy in storytelling. So if you're not offended by the subject matter, these are available on both Steam and GOG.com. And I highly encourage you to check these out. I am planning on doing a kind of standalone review of these at some point. Number 2 on my list is Bring the Jubilee by Ward Moore. This is a kind of book that I don't typically enjoy. This is very character driven, and there's not really much plot to it. There's a little bit, and it is a more slow paced book. This book imagines a world where the South won the American Civil War to the point where they were able to force very heavy reparations on the northern states. And because of those heavy reparations, it's really negatively affected the United States' ability to grow. Even though this isn't the type of book that I really enjoy, Moore does a really great job telling this story. This is probably the book that Moore is best known for, and it's definitely well worth reading. And finally, we get to my number 1 book. This is Mystic and Rider by SHINN. Really enjoyed this book. This book has a good combination of action and good characters. The 2 main characters in this book are kind of middle-aged. They've definitely been in the world and seen their share of things. You have a good romance between these 2 characters, which I really enjoyed. And overall, this is the type of book that when I pick up a book and read it, this is what I want to see in the book. It's got a good cast of supporting characters as well. It's just everything about this book I really enjoyed. I haven't continued on in this series yet, but I'm really looking forward to the point where I get to reread this book and continue on in the series. I read some really great books this year, and I'm really pleased with those books. I certainly recommend any of those books if you're interested in kind of what the story is about. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.